did you immediately have a vision of where you wanted to film this this project, or did anything change throughout the process? Like, for example, like, did the heat wave inspire you to change the direction where it was going to go?
Keith, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I think so. When we kicked off the film, because it was really so, the big blocks were so kind of clear. So in the Act One, we knew we needed to do an open ocean show sequence. We knew we needed to do a coastal seas, we used to do coral reefs, and so on and so forth. So we pretty much quickly blocked out the most the places where we thought we could get the best success rate for the amount of money we had, which is always the natural history equation. And I think, you know, we always knew that we needed to do a section on destruction. I think we were pretty clear that that would include bottom trawling. Things like being able to go down to Antarctica came up as an opportunity, so that was just a kind of boost. So I think a few things we knew what all the blocks were, but we sort of hunted around in some cases for the best possible examples, and some of those came later in the process. But actually for a natural history film, it was always very script driven. You know, it's an authored piece by David, so it was always, you know, a lot of the times when we make a wildlife film, we think, oh well, let's go off to the Serengeti and, you know, let's see what happens. This was absolutely none of that. You know, we need to do boom, 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 boom. So follow, yeah, really dry.
There was with the one difference that was the heat wave.
Yeah.
Holly, you mentioned that we knew we wanted to film coral bleaching. That wasn't a surprise. I think what we weren't necessarily expecting, or nobody was fully expecting, was the scale of that ocean heat wave. So we ended up getting a few extra shoots so we could legitimately show that heat wave sort of effectively sweeping across the world and get that impression of scale, because otherwise there's a risk that one bleached reef looks like, you know, is shown in isolation, isn't as powerful as being able to say, okay, this was filmed in the Caribbean, this was filmed in the Indian Ocean, and you get that sense of what can happen over a year. So that was somewhere where we just pivoted based on what actually happened in the world.
Yeah, I did wonder whether it was, you know, I do feel like it showed. I mean, it was just harrowing. Like, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, like by saying that, but I guess it is, you know, it's the intention of showing how awful some of the treatment of the ocean is. So filming the biggest mass coral bleaching event in history, does seeing harrowing events like this have an impact on you as a filmmaker, and if so, what?
Yeah.
Well,
it is. I mean, we all got into this business to celebrate nature and to enjoy it, and I think, you know, I've been in the business quite a long time, and seeing places being degraded year on year, when I knew them in the 80s or whatever, is always sad and depressing. But weighed against that are the places actually that have come back and are looking really, really exciting. And for me personally, the biggest comeback of all is the whale story. And same for David. We always knew that we wanted to tell that story because, you know, I was a zoology student in the 70s and I thought they were all gone. And then this miraculous thing happened when a few guys got together in a room and signed a piece of paper and banned whaling, and boom. And I've seen sites that I never, ever in my wildest imagination, you know, as a student could have dreamed I'd ever see, because of that one act of humanity to ban whaling. And that really inspires the whole thing now with what could happen to the rest of the oceans, because the fishing story is very similar to the whaling story.
Just quickly on the fishing story, on a slightly less positive note, I personally had quite an emotional reaction to the film. The shots of the fish being caught up in the destruction from the bottom trawling and then being thrown away, I just immediately started sobbing. And it made me rethink entirely whether I should be eating fish, and if so, where from. What do you hope viewers will take away from seeing those sorts of scenes up close for the first time? You know, people who might not necessarily know that this is going on. This is how we get our fish on our tables.
Well, we hope to sort of do two things simultaneously. So I think most people will have a similar reaction to you. Certainly we did, because we'd never seen it before. And that sort of shock of seeing how destructive certain fishing methods can be is pretty harrowing. And hopefully that, because it's been out of sight, it's therefore somewhat out of mind. People don't see that destruction in the way maybe they do of a rainforest being clear cut or whatever. They just don't realize that this is not only normal, it's actually almost encouraged. I mean, the people we filmed, nobody in that film is breaking the law. That's not, this is allowed, sometimes even encouraged. But the flip side is it was really important to us because I don't think anybody involved in this film is anti-fishing or even thinks that as a concept, eating fish is particularly a bad idea. The problem is the way certain types of fishing happens, which is why we really wanted the solution stories. So the whole sort of last third of the film that's much more positive and uplifting. I mean, pretty much all of that is based around fishing communities. Those are communities who have realized that the fish stocks were being damaged by lots of things, but damaging fishing methods in particular, and did something about it, and now catch fish and have a much healthier marine environment simultaneously. So it was really important we didn't make an anti-fishing film, because I didn't think any of us felt that was the thing. It was that there are certain types of fishing methods that are just so destructive, and a lack of protection that would enable fish stocks to recover that we wanted to get across. But it doesn't have to be a fight between fishing and conservation. The win-win actually would be more fish overall, and there's good ways of doing that, and we hope the last third of the film showed that.
Yeah, and on a similar note, it obviously centres local stories as well. How did you set out to approach those communities?
Well, actually, our fellow director, Toby Nolan, I think it was originally Toby's sort of genius idea to sort of get these voices from the communities, and he really wanted to tell the big Hawaiian story. Was the sort of first one, and that's where he set up this. He got this incredible spokes lady, Alani, to sort of tell that story, and then when we actually came to do the sort of scallop dredging, the island of Arran, it actually has been one of the places where there's been a proper marine protected area created as a result of the destruction that happened there. And the person featured there is the uncle of our cinematographer, Doug Anderson, and Doug's just obviously known him in this story. So that was a kind of a passionate one. And then once we got that idea, it kind of built to be able to actually do the same in Liberia and the same in the States and in the Channel Islands. I don't know, Colin, you might know more about the detail.
Well, I was going to say, one of the good things about it is, I think, that you've then got a situation where David, obviously you see him on location a lot, but all the locations David was in were in the UK, which obviously his home where he grew up, often not that far from where he lives. And so it's quite nice that he can be telling the story about his country and what's happening in the waters of his country, but other people are telling the story of what's happening in their country, and it makes it feel like a much more genuinely global piece. And I think that's what we really hoped, is that you got a genuine voice from the places we were featuring, and David links it all together. But really, when he's talking, he's often talking about what he's personally witnessed rather than speaking on behalf of another community.
And was there a conversation between both of you and David about centering different stories as well as his in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, there was conversations about literally every part of this film. So no, Dave, I mean, sort of anybody that's worked with David knows he's extremely hands-on, and so right from the very first idea, Keith had the first discussion about the film with, and then I joined in as well. I mean, David's been involved in every bit of this, so yeah, he loved the way it all came together, and he loved hearing other people's stories, and was involved in everything from writing the script, recording the script, obviously filming all the pieces, but yeah, he's very, very much involved in it.
He's
Yeah.
he's an amazing broadcaster
Yeah.
in the broader sense of the world, and his judgment on, because he's done every bit of telly, you know, in his time with the BBC, you know, control of BBC. He's so broad in his understanding of the media and how it kind of works. He's just a fantastic kind of editorial chief guy to bounce ideas off, and his judgment is always right about what to go for, and you know where the story lies. Is yeah, he's a big editorial help to the whole process. You know,
Brilliant.
beyond just appearing, you know, and doing his pieces. Yeah, and he always has been, you know, ever since.
And am I right in thinking you worked with him since the 80s? Is that correct?
I have, yeah. I met him in 82, which probably seems quite a long time ago.
What has anything changed between you two since then?
Oh, well, yeah, no, well, so I met him. He just finished his first landmark series, Life on Earth, but it was in I was in the BBC, and really just a few years before that. I mean, they wanted him to be the Director General of the BBC. He never wanted to, but he was in charge of all of television. So he was this huge figure in the BBC. So it was, you know, it was, and he's a powerful personality. You know, David. I always say every aspect of him is kind of turned up to sort of +5. So yeah, no, I remember being utterly terrified the first time I met David. But you know, then you see the you know the multifaceted side of him. But what's strange is that he was in his 50s then, probably late 50s, and I was 22 or something stupid, and he seems to have stopped still and stayed in his 50s. I've kind of shot past him. Still seems like the same guy.
What's your favorite thing about the way, this is a question for either of you. What's your favorite thing about the way that Sir David approaches his documentaries?
Storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a brilliant storyteller. And he's probably one of the best, you know, whether it's on the written page or on the screen. Yeah, he's just the ultimate storyteller.
And what's brilliant about the way he does it is that he's got such a deep understanding of science. He's an incredibly clever guy, incredibly well read, but he manages to tell those stories in a way that anyone can engage with. He doesn't dumb them down or simplify them. He's just got a way of telling them that it means if you're a 8-year-old kid interested in the natural world, or you're a super qualified marine biologist, you still engage with the story, and that's a real art form. And he makes it look easy, and it really isn't. So yeah, incredible talent.
Yeah, I'm obviously a big fan, having requested to interview you both about it. Yeah, I just think there's something really special about the way that he speaks to everybody, you know, different demographics, different age groups. Not to be too I don't want to be too dramatic, but what do you think that Sir David's lasting legacy will be from his work?
I mean, from my point of view, I think his lasting legacy is going to be the guy who made global wildlife and global conservation globally known. I think he's going to end up being this kind of figure who really brought the world together around the wonder of the natural world, but also the need to protect it. And I don't think there's ever going to be any other single individual who's going to match that. I don't know, Colin, if you agree with that.
No, I definitely agree with that. And I think you've got people often ask things like, who's going to be the next David Attenborough? And of course, you can't be, because the unique experience of, he had decades of working in television, as Keith talks about, and expertise. He had a real deep understanding of science and exploration. And he put all of that into, 70 years of broadcasting, including some of easily the best programs ever made. Go right back to Life on Earth and onwards. And how you get that degree of expertise and trust in any one person is a combination of an extraordinary man and extraordinary like circumstances of his life, sort of brought together. So I think it's a one-off, absolute one-off.
Yeah, I completely agree. Colin, what can you tell us about your upcoming book with David?
Yeah, so it's also about the ocean, although it's sort of a different take than the film in the sense that but it came from when we were making the film. We had a bit of a discussion thinking there's quite a lot of stuff that we've read, quite a lot of science, different things that don't necessarily fit well with the idea of filming, but would make brilliant stories in a book. And we came up with the idea of how to tell the story of the ocean and the last 100 years of discovery all through stories. It sort of goes back to that piece we were talking about a minute ago, real storytelling. So we tell the stories of the people that did these great scientific discoveries, these incredible deep sea dives and the species they came up, they discovered. Tell the stories of some of the filming that David's done in the ocean across his lifetime. We tell the stories of the people and the great conservation successes in the ocean. So it's all very, very, very story led. And again, the idea was that although it is based on a lot of deep science, that anyone can pick it up, regardless of their background, regardless of whether they've ever thought about marine biology, or they just want to know about a cool species or a great adventure, or have some hope about what good things can happen in the world, that they can get something out of this book. So it's very much a story-led book, really, about all aspects of the ocean and how it fits together.
Great. Remind me, when's that coming out?
It's coming out May 8th on
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, David's
Oh, great.
birthday.
Oh, what
Yeah.
a pairing. Great.
And it's got some lovely
I'm
photos
just
in
aware
there,
that,
including some from Keith's son. So he's a great ocean filmmaker in his own right.
oh, fantastic. Oh, I can't wait to I mean, obviously I've watched it, so I can't wait to, it'll be nice to pair the both of them together. I'm aware I'm a little bit pushed for time, so I won't keep you too much longer, so I'm aware you've probably got a full day of this and tomorrow as well, I think. What would you, just very quickly, what would you like the lasting message of this film to be, both of you?
Protect the ocean. There's conservation is really difficult globally, especially on land, and but the ability to make a huge, quick change to our world, the one thing we can do, which is a big, quick change, which will benefit the whole of humanity massively, is just implement what the UN have said they want to do, which is protect 30% of the ocean. It'll be like what happened with the whale story, but just hundreds of thousand times better, because it just enhances everything, and it'll absolutely really help the climate story. Been listening to all this stuff on the news today about Tony Blair and net zero and what have you. Why on earth are they not thinking about ocean protection as a very, very simple way to capture so much more carbon, because the ocean can do such a huge job, especially if you don't bottom trawl it. But also our fisheries are in decline, in recession. We need growth for our fisheries, and ocean protection can do that. So we hope that's the legacy, is that people look at the science, see common sense, and just do it. And humanity will massively benefit, massively. And it's just an easy win-win. A no-brainer.
He said it really well. I'm not going to add to that.
In fact, we can't understand why the situation where we've got right now is just so, it's crazy. And it makes no sense for anyone, whether they be fishers or people living thousands of miles away from the sea. It doesn't make any sense. And if we can just bring sense to this, and I hope this story of the film just shows people there's a simple way.
Well, I thought it was very, very eye-opening, both in showing the destruction and also that things can be done. Like it's not all hope is lost.
So
But yeah,
empowering,
that was my initial takeaway from it. I really, really enjoyed it. Do you have any more projects coming up in the future that we should know about?
Go ahead, Keith.
Well, Silverback, we've got actually another David Attenborough series coming out, which I think they're going to be announcing fairly soon. In fact, probably next week, so you'll hear about that. So I think that's the next one. That's more a traditional natural history show.